But this particular image, it reminded me of a swan, and I thought of the name Red Swan, so it'll be called Census 3 Red Swan. And then I took the PixelMind AI, the sort of imagine function of it, and I just put in artistic red swan, and then the next image came from that. And that's really the thing, that if you buy the Census 3 Red Swan, then you get this AI version that it's its interpretation of a swan as a one of one on top of that.
Okay, before we get too far into this video, we are giving away an NFT that is worth 1.5 Ethereum, okay? All you have to do to win it is to follow Vesa on Twitter, comment on the video down below on the best part of what he's doing about like our conversation. We really have a sprawling conversation on your favorite part of this conversation about this particularly art, and you will win this NFT. Now, we talk about this NFT that he made, he designed, he created this NFT, and we're giving it away. This is 1.5 Ethereum. This is what this costs, and you will stand to get it for free if you just comment, retweet his pinned tweet here on his Twitter and follow Vesa and comment. Be sure to comment. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. This is a massive giveaway. I hope you enjoyed this AMA. What's going on, Cowboy? In this video, we've got an NFT project, really more an NFT artist. His name is Vesa. Well, he's an artist of all types of walks, and we'll get into kind of how he's merging different styles and forms of art into what is evolving as NFTs. And we want to look at how art is evolving, what NFTs have to deal with the metaverse, and what that means for people like you and me, and more specifically, just creative people in general. If you're new to this channel, my name is Aaron. I'm on a journey to my next Bitcoin while helping you to your next Bitcoin. I'm just super interested in how the crypto space is evolving, all different types of industries out here. And I'm just exploring. I'm not a financial advisor, okay, just a lizard brain cowboy. But if you want to go with me in this journey, hit subscribe, give us a like on this video if if you like this type of content. And you should know that on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of people just shilling random projects. And there's a lot of really bad NFT projects out there. And if you're into NFTs, as I am, I want to know what are the best top tier NFT projects. And I've scoured, pretty much every aspect of people who are in NFTs, and they all say that really the linchpin for any project is the artist. Okay. It's digital art. It would make sense that the artist is really the most important part of this. But what does that mean for utility? What does that mean for the expression of art? What does that mean for creativity? And today we get a chance to pick the brains of the artist behind this particular NFT series. We could talk about that, or we could talk just big picture here. His name is Vesa. He's a award-winning artist for like 14 years. He's now full-time into crypto art, into the NFT space. And I want to pick his brain on where NFTs can revolutionize an industry like art, like the creative aspect of how we understand value and the transfer of value through creatives. And so, Vesa, welcome to the channel. Glad you're here.
Hey, Aaron, glad to be with you. I've been looking forward to this chat with you for a while. We've been sort of going cross wires to now have finally this chance to talk with you, and I really loved some of the interviews that you've done. And kind of the perspective that you have for this whole thing, the integrity that you approach it with. And I don't have too many Bitcoin, but I remember the same kind of chase that I had, that I just want one. I need to get the one sort of sorted and in the wallet, and then that's a nice milestone when you get there. So I'm rooting for you, and I know it's coming very soon.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been a long journey, but in my journey, I have met incredible people, really brilliant people, and they're using blockchain technology and this whole crypto industry to really express themselves, especially what they're made up out of. But I want to know more about you, Vesa. Like, can you give me a little bit of a background of your history, like coming into crypto? Maybe your background, just a snapshot of your experience as an artist. What did you used to do? I know you did like a little photography and oil. How does that, what you did, and then how you brought it into crypto?
Okay, I'll go on a little bit of a rant, because it is, like you said, 14 years just in contemporary art. But not to go too much into when I was born, but when I was 5 years old, I turned my parents' pots and pans into a drum kit, and uh, that kind of started banging away, and I had this rhythm that was dying to come out of me, and started listening to James Brown very early. There was just something just was in me from the very beginning, and I first went into music with guitars. I had some bands, and then decided that film was the way. I became an educated film director in the UK, had a production company for about a decade, and then I had a crisis of everything where I was in Finland doing a television series about dogs and things like that, and paying the production company bills that I founded, and that wasn't going in the direction of Ridley Scott and kind of directing the next Fight Club or something like that. That was at the pivot of my mind at the moment, and I realized that just maybe if I tried this crazy thing, if I started body painting on people and photographing that process and photoshopping and doing something interesting with that, maybe I'd have something that would be quite different. And when I saw the first piece in front of me, which was a high resolution file, essentially in 2008, I no longer wanted to make films anymore. I thought, this is it. This is what I want to do from here on out. And I went into then trying to figure out how to have a career in the what we now tongue in cheek call a little bit the legacy art world. And it was quite difficult because most of those players in that whole thing, they're always after the oil original, or the something that is the sort of tangible thing. And I kept saying that mine are reproductions. I can't, and that stopped a lot of conversations because they couldn't be monetized in a way that made sense to them. So um, because of that, and another thing that I kind of came to an awareness of how the monetary system works in 2006. So I became a little bit. I was an artist. I was a money activist and an entrepreneur, which is a difficult thing to be all those things at once. So when I finally got what Bitcoin was in 2017, I was all in and ready to go because I had the whole worldview. I understood what the fiat monetary system was. I understood what many of these things were that were a problem. And I'd even produced a documentary film with some friends about the monetary system in Finland for Finnish language, and we gave it away for free. So I not only did I understand Bitcoin, but very soon it came to that, oh, this is going to lead into NFTs. And finally, these 350 artworks that I'd made, these high resolution files, were going to be a thing. So that's how this whole thing started. And there really wasn't, at that time, there was maybe Robness. I'm not sure if Crypto Graffiti was before me or after me, probably. But in the first sort of 3, 4 artists who came into this space, who'd had a career, who were sort of legit fine artists, that's around the time when we sort of kicked in. And Nano Burks was then sort of coming. Yeah, just a few of us. So I've really watched and witnessed this whole space go from nothing in NFTs and crypto art into what it is now.
Got it. Yeah. So basically, you started off in music, and then in film, and then you moved from film, and that kind of merged with painting on body painting, right? And you kind of captured that, and that didn't really sit well with the legacy system because it was hard to monetize. And so then you went and you were this like trifecta of a money activist, an artist, and an entrepreneur. I'm not the artist, but I am more of an entrepreneur and money activist. So you're really saying the same stuff that I've really come to discover in the last year, is like, what the heck is happening with this fiat money system? I really can't believe like we're basing all of our faith into like something that someone controls totally. The value of our work and time is based on someone that's just printed magically. And so you
It's
took
super
those
inflationary at the moment. Like, so bad.
Tell me about it. It's so bad. So then you moved all of those 3 prongs basically, and like your history, into NFT arts, and you're basically in this full time. You're delving into using your NFTs or your art into different expressions, into the metaverses and all that kind of stuff. But here's the one thing I saw on your website that really kind of, we could talk about all the stuff you're doing. I want to get your central thesis though about NFTs. It's been very difficult for me to grasp to grasp art NFTs. Okay. I could grasp the utility of NFTs, but it's been very difficult for me to grasp the art of NFTs. And when I say that, it really struck a chord when I read this on your website. You referred to NFTs as the liberation of a whole creative class of people. Could you explain that to me, to someone who's a lizard brain, right? Like, okay, I could understand, like, if I get a digital card, it gives me utility. But how does an NFT liberate a whole creative class of people, as you say?
Well, art has been a tremendously difficult thing to make a living out of throughout history. Really, there's only a few people out of 100 that make it. If even if that's the ratio, it might be even much worse than that. One out of 1,000 or 10,000, who knows? And I suppose the way that I look at it is that for example, when I started making art for and about this new money movement and the technology of what it really is, because I moved beyond the whole body painting sort of premise and started using just themes and ideas and how to talk about this whole stuff, is that there's about 3.5 billion people, I believe, in the world without a bank account. And many of those people are living in places that sort of skipped the industrial revolution, but they can now hop directly into the digital one. And going back in time a little bit, ever since the dawn of computers, we've had digital creativity. And let's say from the 70s and 80s, we'd have a lot in the NFTs is this kind of pixel art that is even quite popular going into the very first sort of iterations of what we were doing in creativity or art with computers. But because there weren't NFTs, you couldn't have a digital ledger that you could trust, or you didn't have digital scarcity. That creativity has been ignored for 40, 50 years because the bottleneck was that we didn't have those NFTs. So the counterintuitive thing, because we're mostly accustomed to thinking that computers are very good at replicating things and then they're very good at sharing things, is that that's kind of like trying to make leaves money. It's it's a fool's errand, because there's just simply too many of them. You can't restore energy in that kind of way. So but now there's so many different things, like for example, provenance can be put into an immutable ledger. And that is very important in art. You can trust that if you know my wallet address and I'm minting an artwork from that, it comes directly from the source. So that sort of takes away a lot of the forgery and different kinds of things, especially now for living artists doing this stuff themselves. But because now you can have digital scarcity, is that, for example, something that is like Mona Lisa, it's one of a kind. You can now have the digital version of that is as unique as the physical one. So only a one of one will ever exist. And now if you think that we're expanding into the metaverse, all these different kinds of worlds that are hopefully going to be quite interoperable and people are jumping in and out of them. And the sort of whole idea is that, because I live in Dubai, there's a lot of what they call peacocking over there, is with your fancy different cars or yachts or buildings or clothes or whatever it is. And it's a part of our human psychology, is that we want to show people who we are and what our taste is and our sort of social status and express ourselves in different kinds of ways. And people do it in the physical world. So when I went to my very first metaverse meetup, and I thought at the time I'd heard things like, there was digital sneakers a couple of years ago that were being sold for $120 or something like that. And I thought, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, are you serious? And then I went to this meetup where there was a lot of sort of contemporaries, like Coldy and Josie and whatever. And they had these boom boxes for heads and rockets for shoes and all this kind of thing. And I just had this nude sort of stick man, and it said Vesa on top of it. I was like, oh no, that's how they get you. Like it's the social aspect, the psychology aspect, is that how we are as human beings, how we interact and who we are. For better or worse, you will have the same kind of responsibility of doing all of that stuff now in the metaverse. So that's kind of the psychology aspect of what is transferring over to the digital ownership thing, and you can have digital land, you can have digital buildings, you can have digital fashion, all of these different kinds of things and ownership. If you think of it, most kids now, they care more about their appearance on Instagram than they do in the real world. So the transformation has already happened in many different kinds of ways in people on the inside of people already. And what it was really waiting for was the innovation of NFTs in order for us to have digital scarcity in the digital space. That was a little bit all
Yeah.
over the place, but maybe you could
No,
catch.
no. Well, I want to touch on the part that I thought was really interesting to me was what you talking about, what was core to the human psyche, nature, soul, is that for me, I personally believe that, like you, that there is something where we all want to peacock is probably like the street term, but there's a deficiency in our own like self worth or self perception of ourselves that we must then like kind of attract people or get them to see who we really are, like this expression of ourselves or this peacock and like, hey, look, I'm worth something, look at this car or whatever. Like, for better or for worse, I just think that's human nature. Like we innately have this need for other people to get to know us and accept us, and so we do that in various different ways. Some are hurtful, some are helpful. Like you said, on Instagram I could see these kids kind of going down that road. How do you like not capitalize that, but like answer that? Because before I didn't see what if someone owned an NFT, there was no way to showcase that, no way to peacock, no way to put that out there until the metaverse. Maybe like Twitter or Facebook can, you could upload your connect your wallet and do that there. It's not there yet, but the immediate thing is the metaverse. How do you as an artist think of utility, and like how do you think through, I'm going to create this piece of art that allows someone to express themselves properly, express value of themselves, and still find utility in a metaverse? How do you layer on all those and make like good art that speaks to you and that comes from you? How do you layer all those things together? I'd see it seems very complicated and rigid and difficult, but how do you do that if you're doing it on a regular basis here?
Well, let me tell you first what the sort of status quo in the art world is now before going into a project that I'm doing in Dubai. And if you think that, let's say, traditional venture capital funds, they're not very much interested in art for the most part because it's not a thing that they think that normally scales. And I'm not even saying that VC money should be coming into art, but should there be a reason, this might be it. That if you take, like, let's say in Dubai, a normal gallery or something like that, and it has maybe about I don't know, 50 artworks. It's geolocational. It has a lot of different kinds of restrictions with culture. It has a lot of different kinds of what kind of relationships the gallerist has. And you have physical products that are limited to a certain amount and blah, 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 blah. And some people like to go to galleries, but depending on how the human chemistry works in between the gallerist or the one representing and the one coming in, do they feel pressured, not? And again, some of that psychology stuff. So now what we did with Dr. Marwan, who is the CEO of the Dubai Blockchain Center, I showed him a picture of an art car concept that I'd made in 2014 already or something like that, which was a Tesla that was wrapped in art. And this guy, being very crazy and cool, after a couple of months, he gave me a call and said that he's bought 19 cars that we're going to be wrapping in art and making into NFTs. And the conversation very quickly evolved into all these different kinds of things. And what we could do with that is that you could essentially point your mobile on the car itself, and the art would come alive. And maybe we could have a virtual reality version of this car. And what would that look like? And could that be stacked on top of the value on things? And that became a very interesting conversation that started leading into action very soon. And Dr. Marwan, with his connections, he managed to pull it off, that we now have the first street legal art cars in Dubai,
Wow.
which is an
That's cool.
interesting concept, because the first three cars that we have, I mean, the license plate number 8, just the license plate, was sold for $16 million just a while ago. So that's it's a little bit of Dubai. So we kind of have this thing that we're putting together. But that after that, very soon, I met Mika Rosendahl from Zoan, which is a Finnish virtual reality company. They've been building for 14 years as well. They have Super Bowl level clients and just spectacular quality. And they made this world called Cornerstone Land. And we got talking about this thing, and he was excited about Dubai and kind of integrating a part of their ventures there. So we started doing these experiments with the virtual reality Tesla, and what could that look like? And maybe it's a game. Maybe if you buy the physical car and some of the features and whatever, you get the virtual reality car, you get to race those cars in the metaverse, and maybe you get to win some prize money. If we do it like same way as Formula One, you have sponsors, and maybe we get Binance to come and do their banners on the road and all those kinds of things. And you know, basically, the used 2017 Tesla, that is Dr. Marwan's personal car, that we've wrapped in art, is about a $30,000, $35,000 car. It's a used car, but when it's wrapped in a unique one-of-one artwork that is about the DeFi movement, it has the Ethereum logo nicely embedded into it, and then it has the virtual reality asset, and then access to this gallery that we've built with Zoan in the Cornerstone Land, where you get to race them. It gets really interesting because it's then definitely no longer a $35,000 asset. It
Yeah.
depends on how it's going to go in the auction, of course, but
Yeah. So so I guess there's a lot there. So what you're saying is that you're going to be you're joined right now. You're joining your minds with these other players in the industry, not in the same industry as art industry, but like people in the metaverse, people dealing with actual cars, and you're wrapping this car in an artwork. A car is a depreciating asset, but artwork is an appreciating asset, and so you're creating something. You're merging two different things here, two different asset classes in a different way, and then you're merging into augmented reality to be able to look at your phone, and then virtual reality to push it into the metaverse, and not just, and then further than that, you're adding, let's say, like some kind of utility. I'm not sure how you would be using it in the metaverse or what kind of benefit. I mean, like, it would be really cool. I mean, like, hey, check out my car, and then you pull up your phone and you're just like scanning, and things would come up or whatever. I could see something like that. Like, it's a mixture of like a trading card with a piece of art, with a video game, with a car. Like these different ways to flex. So I guess my answer, I think, is like, hey, you're looks like you're just layering it on with the help of other people, and it's so darn new right now. You guys are creating something that's an entirely new, seemingly asset class, like a hybrid asset class.
yeah, for sure. I mean, um, it goes from being a liability not only to an appreciating asset class, but also something that can earn you residual income due to the races. So it's stacking value on top of one another, and we're not done innovating. There's so many different things that we can still do with that. But coming back to the point about the VC money, is that you can have, let's say, in a normal gallery or even in a big museum, you might be able to have an opening for, I don't know, 10,000 people or something like that in a very fancy museum in Bilbao, or something like that in a Guggenheim or something. Now, in the gallery that we've built with Zoan or Blockchain Valley Virtual, I mean, there's no limit. You can have an opening for 1 million people.
Yeah.
And what does it look like if you, let's say, in an ideal world and everything goes well, and in a couple of years I get to launch an artwork or a project to 1 million people, and I charge tickets also. Maybe it's only a couple of dollars to be able to come and attend, but just the ticket price would be a couple of $1 million for people to come and check out the show. And then after that, you have the whitelists, you have the different kinds of things on how to sort of monetize the different kinds of things, from the artwork themselves or the art cars or fashion or statues, 3D statues, all of these different things. And I think it's just a super, super exciting thing. And it's so ridiculously beyond anything that the art world is doing now, or what you can experience with art in a traditional gallery. Plus, you have the peace of mind that you get to be in your own home doing this. Like you can be eating a ridiculous ketchup sandwich uh, with Doritos crunching on top of it, and there's no social pressure whatsoever. You don't have to go to the gallery to have that kind of thing, whether I'm looked at some way or whether I have to buy or no, none of that. I mean, you either use your laptop or even phone or VR goggles, and you get to sort of. So in that sense, again, it's sort of it's a little bit bastardized. People say that something gets democratized because sometimes that means that something gets a lot dumber, also. But in this particular way, I think there's a lot of liberation, and when it comes to the liberation of a whole creative class of people, I mean, there's some crypto artists like Carlos Marcial who came in a couple of years ago. He's a father of three kids, I think, from Mexico, and I think he was quite struggling to make ends meet and things like that. And he happened to be at the right place at the right time in crypto art. And I think he's opening up now South America to many different artists. And he's done very, very well for himself. It was just a while ago that he sent a tweet. I think that only from royalty sales alone on his NFTs, he was able to just switch off for 3 months or whatever
That's
with his
awesome.
family.
Yeah.
So I might get that wrong, but approximately those lines.
Yeah.
So what it means is that you can come from, like he says, a third world country and enter a global marketplace, and that wasn't possible for artists. And it's not only visual art; it could be drum beats, it could be visuals, photography is now kicking in. There's so many different kinds of things, and I think ultimately where it gets really interesting is that because when I was listening to Eric Weinstein a lot, super brilliant guy, and he was explaining how the sort of peer review process of the scientific research papers is a little bit broken. And I was thinking, wow, could NFTs maybe help fix some of that? Could what are the different kinds of implications of digital scarcity and these immutable ledgers? Um, what can you do with them? Because another brilliant thing that I was just doing, because I'm here at the countryside, I was doing a bunch of different kinds of housework, like chopping wood and doing whatever very glamorous things. But I was listening to, at the same time, the Robert Breedlove series with Michael Saylor about money, and how we started this whole conversation is that what the fiat money system is and how good of a money or the foundation layer of money Bitcoin is. We've really not had anything like it before. And in some sense, I have compassion towards that. We have a long history of having money that doesn't really work, and we've tried to make our best with the different kinds of things, and it's not really been possible. And then Bitcoin
Mm.
lands, and then maybe Ethereum on top of that, and now the things that we can build on top of it. It takes us time because we have a tradition of thousands of years of not having anything like this. Um, so that's why it's a little counterintuitive. It takes a little bit of time to land in NFTs, and of course, in NFTs from the very beginning, they did a lot of, let's say, things I wouldn't have really endorsed, and not only that, but different kinds of quality issues and whatever community building. But all in all, I think now we're entering this first bear market, and checking out what's really coming out of this is that it goes through the same kind of oceans and waves and things. But I really believe in this technology. I don't think it's a matter of belief. I think it's inevitable.
Hmm.
It's just something that has been necessary for a very long time, and now it's finally here.
Yeah.
So we
I
take
think
the good with the bad, I guess.
you touch on the so when you talk about Breedlove and Sailor, I was there live when they did a live in person interview, and it really blew my mind. I was a little lizard brain trying to take notes and all that kind of stuff in the crowd. But one thing that was very clear and apparent is what you're saying now is that, hey, look, we had nothing like this for multiple millennia here, and now we have something like this. And I think it's this the the ability to not duplicate or forge or counterfeit value, time, and effort. And because when you're able to do that, you put people in slavery. And when you control their time and their effort and their energy and their work, basically the results of their work, I thought that was very interesting. But when it comes to NFTs, in the expression of that, in that blockchain immutability, all that scarcity, when it brings it to NFTs, I'm sitting here looking at I'm not sure what I'm looking at, I guess is what is saying. And it's I think it was Mark Moss who said it, something like this, that when we had steel for the first time, we had no idea we had the materials to build a rocket ship that allows us to land on the moon. We had no idea that we had the materials to build a little robot that lands us on Mars or whatever. I'm not sure if they use steel. This is the example. Now, when we have blockchain, we are not sure what we have here. That's going to come later in life, and that these are just the materials for people who are the pioneers and the explorers and the people who are trying to forge something into what the world of tomorrow, with that. And I really appreciate that aspect, and anyone who's diving into this. I'm wondering how you're using it though. I'm looking at your series, your Senses series here, and I'm seeing, help me to understand, why is this different? And I'll pull it up here. And this is, I hope it's a fair question. I hope it doesn't come off like, you know, this antagonistic thing, but help me and some other people to understand, like, what makes your artwork unique from, let's say, all the other NFT projects out there that have monkeys and melting faces and pixelated JPEGs? Like, why is the Senses look, and I just pulled up on your website here, the Senses NFT series. Like, help me walk through like some of the artwork behind it. Help me walk through like, why is this difficult? Why is this expressive? What does this express? Walk me through the mentality, your mentality of creating this artwork.
Okay. Well, a lot of because the foundational layer of pretty much all of those different pieces are studio photography and body painting photography that I did since 2008. So again, about 14 years of some of the best shots I've taken along the way. And the premise of them really was to explore with these people of how they could become better people, how they could let go of some of their limitations, which sometimes means that in these sessions, people cry or they get angry or they get expressive or dance or serendipity and joy. And there's so many different emotions that are sort of captured in those moments that get condensed to so few shots. I mean, I've done 60 works for this series, and it's something that I'll probably continue for a while, because it allows me to do collaborations with different kind of celebrities and others. And the first one is already there in the mix. And I needed to do something that is not as laborsome and sort of multi-stacked as the body painting pieces that I normally make, and something that is also something that gets me into the community, starting with the prices of something like 2 ETH and 1.5 ETH, and then steadily building the floor, because the prices of the other ones are a little bit higher. And that's been a real problem for me ever since the beginning. That already back in 2018, when I was doing my first NFT things, I did a collaboration with a company called Orion Vault. And essentially, when Coldy and a couple of others, they were happy to get $50 or $100 on super rare, then I was already asking for 50 grand for a one of one for an NFT. And that really wasn't very sensible, because there weren't any of those collectors, and no one cared about it. But, that company at the time, Orion Vault, they had secured the rights for the first one of one digital Mona Lisa, and they had legit sort of art world connections. But the bear market was brutal, and eventually the company went under. But I kind of, because like, for example, in 2013, I made a project with a Bollywood actress that reached about 300 million people with digital art. And I got quite a lot of critical acclaim and couldn't really find a footing in the legacy world. And then that led into the NFTs, and I couldn't really make that fit with my pricing and logistics and things, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I missed out on a lot of the first sort of building blocks of NFTs, because those Coldy pieces, or the ones that they sold for $100 or X copy or whatever, they quickly merged into like super high skyrocketed prices in a couple of years. But that's because they started very low. And that's something that I was very stubborn to hold on to for a very long time, to try and keep only some series, most of them to be very expensive. From the point of view of the emerging collector collector class of NFTs. So this is one thing that I'm fixing with this, is that it's easy enough for me to take these photos, augment them with this kind of paint stuff that just visually looks very pleasing, and play about with it and have fun with it, and keep it a little bit lighter, and then have it play with the sort of roadmap ideas. With Pixelmind, we made a collaboration with this particular series that everyone who collects these NFTs gets an AI one-of-one derivative version of that piece. So that's another thing that comes on top as value. And then we're revitalizing my coin, hashtag Vesa, next year. I'm building a company, Vesa Digital, which is a constellation of 12 people now in my company who are putting this stuff together as we're about to wrap these cars and planes and yachts and things like that from the physical world as well as the metaverse. So it's something that I needed to have on the side to experiment with a bunch of stuff and have a lot of fun with, and do collaborations with influencers and kind of have a lot of freedom and levity that I don't really have in these other things that are building these metaverses. You know, takes a year and nothing is published yet. So, and
Yeah.
like we talked, the crypto moves fast. So
Yeah.
it's this, and it's for me to return a little bit back to my senses as well as an artist, to create more, because most of this stuff is very cumbersome and long term for me to build. So this is not in that similar kind of vein. And I'm having much more fun with creativity now after a while that I've had in a couple of years, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is basically you're taking the last 14 years of your career along with all the and you take the best shots of it, right? The best photography, the basis of it, and with all the emotion and the energy and the experience behind all of that. And then you augment that and you put all that thought and with painting and like some digital layering on top of it. And then, so you have what is just to compare, right? On the market, you've got these PFPs or whatever, these digital like pixels, which I'm for the life of me can't bring myself to buy like something like pixelated like that. I just can't for the life of me do it. But to know that there is someone who has a long-standing career of 14 years, took the best of their career, turned it digital, added to the digital art layering on top of that, and then puts that and adds utility, at least builds in future utility for it, and then wraps things, like does something fun like wraps a yacht or like a car with it. That's what sets your art apart from the standard, like I don't know. I guess I'm trying to see it like this: like, okay, there's the Ethereums of the world, and then there's the I don't know, the meme coin stuff out there. And I see a lot of these NFT projects like the equivalent of these meme coins. And what you're doing is you're creating the Ethereum equivalent of NFTs, like just this so robust system behind what is this NFT. So I could get with that. And that's to your point as well, as like a venture capitalist, someone who's looking to invest. Hey, when you're looking to invest in NFTs, are you looking to invest in what's hype right now? What seems to be a long-standing, long-term, building out an infrastructure constellation, as you said, behind a company and all that kind of stuff. So I just find that very fascinating as far that's where you're taking it, especially that roadmap. Very, very curious about that. In regards to that and your roadmap, what is the most exciting thing for you on the verge right now? Like the next, like what are you most excited about, most passionate about that you're looking forward to coming up?
It's actually the Census series, because of the amount of opportunity that it really gives me to surprise people. Because it starts in one vein, but of course, because I know a little bit further down the line of what's going to come, and that the mystery box is there for a reason. Because people first have a perception, oh, it's this, and then it won't be, and then there'll be another thing. It'll all be along the same theme in a way, but it'll, as a story and as a concept, it'll keep evolving in surprising ways. And this is the fun thing about it, is that, you know, a part of it is that I get to have much more in the spirit of a moment kind of ideas of where I could be taking it next, or what could be fun with it. But it's so light to maneuver and still looks like something that, NFT photography is now becoming online properly. There's a lot of people who are doing that. The art thing has been there, the digital sort of creativity side, but this is bringing them all together, and the access with all these different six now um, on being built, and some of them already released metaverse worlds where I get to utilize the publication of these and then see how they might be implemented in the physical space is quite exciting. But there's, the Cars project in Dubai is amazing. But I'm super focused now on mostly sort of putting together the decks and everything required to do my company properly, to fundraise for the fall season going back to Dubai. Because this whole thing needs an infrastructure and a company that goes beyond being just a normal artist. It was just Kanye who was saying just a while ago that an artist really needs a CEO in his company, and a CFO.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of negotiations behind the scenes that are happening in order for this to happen. I mean, it orbits around the different kinds of things that are me, but Vesa Digital isn't really about me anymore. It's a company with different people and entities and their expertise that come in to take over some of the things that I don't really know how to do, nor are they my interest. And these people that are now in the team are brilliant. I mean, I'm having such fun just having these conversations with them, kind of learning a lot, and it's to the point where my neurology like calms down listening to them, because I know I no longer have to try and be the person that I cannot ever be, even if I wanted to, and that kind of sort of
Wow.
that's really nice about how to think of being an artist, and what the reach of this and what the potential of it is because of this community that is coming together to build it together.
Yeah, I'm that's very interesting. That's very like esoteric, right? It's like one of those things where like I feel comfortable being around like brilliant people. I don't have to like be somebody like different or like trying to, you know, this work ethic of like, okay, I'm trying to portray myself as something that I'm not. I certainly love when people are expressive of themselves, passionate about something, really show some kind of dedication to their art or their craft. Could you describe to me a little bit about this art or craft of yours? I want to know like this is a piece of yours. Can you talk to me about like, what am I looking at here? What were you thinking about how you put things together? What was this originally like? Help me to understand what I'm looking at here, and from your perspective here.
Well, you really need to put in if you don't mind, the other one first, because that's
Okay.
the
Yeah.
original that I created. So this is Senses 3. This is the third artwork, and it was one of the sessions that I did with a dancer called Laura, and she was in my studio, and just someone who was spectacular at being present and being in her body and doing just being very expressive about it and very free. And that shot was just something that I kind of paid attention to. And it was nice that in real life she's much more blonde, but in this particular one, it comes across that she's very ginger.
Yeah.
And some of that stuff that just looked a little bit like a swan. So I just implemented those colors that were sort of bright and wonderful. And there's a certain sense of sensuality, of course, if you do nude photography. But the point is not really to ever kind of express anyone's body bits or things like that. So, and it makes it also much more fun and colorful. Let's say if someone's doing something that is an expression that can be quite expressing anxiety or something like that, and then you splash a bunch of really colorful ink on top of that, it changes the mood. It's almost like an antidepressant that comes on top of the whole thing. But this particular image, it reminded me of a swan, and I thought of the name Red Swan, so it'll be called Census 3 Red Swan. And then I took the PixelMind AI, the sort of imagine function of it, and I just put in artistic Red Swan, and then the next image came from that. And that's really the thing, that if you buy the Census 3 red swan, then you get this AI version that it's its interpretation of a swan as a one of one on top of that.
Wow. Now, so and so you added these colors, right? I'm not sure how to describe like these droplets. And so and then you merged it into its second version, bringing out that swan aspect and highlighting the light the colors here. Is that about right?
Yeah,
Okay, good deal.
yeah, and it's not really this is the part of the fun of this whole thing, is that there's people who have sort of artistic, creative expressions who are in front of the lens, and some will have intellectual, some will have different kind of contributions, and they will require a different kind of thing that just sort of becomes this photographic expression that then gets splashed some paint on top of. But the paint really doesn't have too much of a heavy thing that is expressing something spiritual, core, transcendence, doing all of these things that I'm usually sort of doing. I just wanted this process to be super light and then be assisted by this machine learning and merger of human mind and sort of AI mind. What could they do as new connotations together, and where could we take this? And these are the first iterations. These are the first sort of explorations of what this whole thing could be. So,
Awesome.
um,
Good deal.
yeah.
Good, sweet. So, guys, if you are interested in Vesa and what he's doing as far as with his art and how he's building out Vesa Digital into different metaverses and different partnerships, we have. There is a lot we could talk about here, but for the sake of time, this is like something that's really. It really goes into the what does NFT and the creative space and what creative people will have what are the building blocks they have now and what are they going to do with it, and you see Vesa doing that exactly, blazing the trail right now. If you want to check out his links, all the links are down in the description down below. Vesa, I got one final question for you before we roll out of here. What do you think the future of NFTs will look like? What do you think the future of NFTs are going to look like? And how do you want to be a part of it? And how do you think that other people should be a part of it as well?
Well, that's a question. I mean, it says, what's the future of Bitcoin? I mean, some people say that it's the world's reserve currency, and some say it's going to zero. This is a little bit of a similar kind of situation. I think you had a really good description of the whole thing, is that with the whole steel thing, we had no idea that that was going to land on the moon as it was. We have an intuition about how important it is that we have this inexhaustible creativity on the inside of us, and more jobs that are these sort of mundane jobs are becoming irrelevant. And I think, okay, maybe I could finish with this, is that I think that there's two things going on. And the reason why, let's say, we see a lot of dick butts and we these kind of NFT projects and whatever, people are of course making money and building communities on top of that and exploring this whole thing. And how I see that, and why a part of it, outside the obvious stuff with COVID and people's livelihoods and different kinds of things and just wanting to make quick money fast, is that we really are going through a transformation of becoming from the late stage industrial revolution into the creative revolution, or the going even beyond information revolution, is that we're becoming finally free enough to be creative people. Now, let's say if you have a bunch of or you have someone who might have otherwise become an accountant, but now is flirting with the idea of becoming a sort of NFT degen instead. I think there's a lot of, the bar is very low, because I think a lot of people are transforming the ideas of what they might have been giving in school, of what they could be doing with their lives, and all of a sudden they have this new reality that they want to be a part of, and that they definitely don't want to be a part of the old world.
Yeah.
And this is a way to do it. So that's the sort of elevation of the bottom. But what I more represent, and what I've been working towards for a long time, and in terms of ideas and what I think is important, is that this time in our history where we are, you could take Renaissance Italy, that was in scatters, before the Medicis came up with a monetary innovation, which in this kind of context could be said that is Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin community is really, or crypto community is the new decentralized Medici family. And let's say if the Medicis would have only funded their own citadels and yacht parties and orgies and having fun and all of this stuff, and we wouldn't have had the Italian Renaissance that funded some of the most world's spectacular art, science, and a kind of cultural evolution that we still, after hundreds and hundreds of years, go back to Italy to as tourists to visit or wonder at the kind of stuff that they were making. Yeah. That this is the high end of creativity. What hopefully will be, I mean, none of us are in control of any of that, but we can cast our best bets of putting together this sort of integral package of value that might have stand a chance. That's what I came in to do to begin with. I was a crypto artist first before I was an NFT artist. And what that means to me is that I came in with artistic substance and expression and stories to support the new money movement, which is really the first avant-garde in art, truly, in about 40 years. Because you could argue that Andy Warhol was the last really sort of avant-garde artist. And then after that, it became corporatized, it became propagandized, and art became sort of a weird amalgam that sort of lives in its own bubble. And it really hasn't been challenging the status quo at all for a long, long time. So when crypto art came along, and what I'm really proud of being the first wave of things, is that that's what we came to say. We said, hey, we're artists. We get this stuff. We get what the central banks are. We know what's going on here and how important this is. And here's some art about it. We came to support it. But of course, that was very quickly diluted into something because it's actually threatening. The avant-garde is, of course, threatening to some of the power structures. So, but if you then look at historically real avant-garde art, those are the pieces that maintain the value because they really stood for something. They really did something. Yeah. So along the lines of maybe thinking about NFTs and the higher level of NFTs is that correctly, like you pointed out, that it's with artists and their careers and integrity and how long they've been building and what kind of substance and critical acclaim and whatever, and do they have community and all of those things. But also just looking at what was the substance of their art and was there really something in there and is it worth remembering? Maybe it doesn't do the same thing as Dick Butts does overnight, like in terms of making you money, but it has the same potential and longer, and you'll be a part of something very different if you're sort of supporting something substantial, building long-term like that, as opposed to these things that are really mostly just companies trying to do very quick bucks. Yeah. That's sort of the majority of NFTs.
I fully agree with you. I guess one of the interesting things that I came across was that the sale of art has actually been like paintings and stuff like that, and sculptures has been a very good store of value. Actually, it's appreciated in this type of market where everything else is depreciated. A lot of people are running into art to kind of store their value and their money. And that only happens, like you said, when like genuine substantive art, pieces of art are created. I'm sure that during the Renaissance and during Andy Warhol's time, that there was a lot more trash art out there, but those didn't stand the test of time because we actually have true artists doing that. And when you said like, hey, the Medici family gave birth to this atmosphere, this economy, this environment to create some of the best pieces of art and showcase some of the best artists, and that you made that comparison to the decentralized community, also being able to give rise and unlock some of the best artists and the best projects in art. Combine that with some of the brilliance that exists out there today with some of that technology. I'm very excited to see you and yourself and what you're doing, your contemporaries blaze a trail for the next wave of what NFTs could be in the future. Anyways, guys, thank you so much, Vesa, for joining me. Check out his links down below. Thank you for this fantastic discussion. I mean, I really you were making my brain hurt with this kind of talk, and I hope it was enjoyable to anyone else. Thanks for watching, and we will see you all next time.